So since the release of the COVID vaccines, there have been a number of questions about its safety, its efficacy. I mean, people are really concerned about the types of treatment. People hear about DNA, RNA, and they are just really concerned. So obviously, a lot of questions have arisen. There are many myths people are really want to understand. And now, as you know, there's been a new spike in COVID infections. And that has raised the level of anxiety. We were still trying to understand this, and now we hear that it's getting worse in various pockets around the world. As most of us may know, there are a number of COVID-19 treatments and vaccines in development. I think at the last count, they were probably way over 300 treatments and vaccines in development. So it's a very active area right now in clinical development. Most companies are even pivoting to working on COVID-19 treatments. Right now, we have 3 approved vaccines. All 3 vaccines are molecular based. We have 2 that are mRNA vaccines, which are the Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna vaccine. And then we have one that's a DNA-based vaccine, which is the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine as well. But the thing about it is that with all the anxiety with COVID is, these vaccines will be 0% effective if nobody takes them. So currently, when they've done some study, they've said as much as maybe 45% of people are scared about taking vaccines. They don't want to take the vaccines. And obviously, if that happens, that's actually going to make things even worse. So this is, these talks like this and a lot of other talks are just an attempt to allay the fears of, the public and different people with regards to the vaccines. Now, the other challenge is because the vaccines were developed in warp speed, they were developed so quickly, it really made people also very skeptical. How can we develop vaccines so quickly, in less than a year? I mean, are these vaccines really safe? And then there are DNA vaccines and mRNA vaccines. I mean, is this going to change my DNA? So we get those kinds of questions. So with that, I'm just going to go into some of the questions that we've been asked and invite the panelists to contribute and participate in it. So the first question that we have is, why should my family and I take the COVID vaccine? So I'd like to open it up and maybe start with Dr. Linus Anuku to answer that.
Thank you very much, Uzezi, and thank you for that eloquent introduction. The question as to why families and individuals should take the vaccine is a very good question. Unfortunately, as things stand right now, we have very limited therapeutics for the management of COVID. In the absence of therapeutics, vaccination is the next best option we have. Keep in mind that we have been doing vaccinations for several years. Several deadly diseases have been eliminated by vaccination, such as smallpox. Okay, so this is not a question of whether vaccinating a person is good or bad. We know it is good. Now, on the case of the COVID vaccine, the rate of infection is more than that of the common flu. We already know that. If you get vaccinated from the COVID, it's going to protect you. Now, when you are protected, it's also going to protect you and your family. And the way we can protect the society at large is when we develop what is called herd immunity. It means that several members of the society are immunized, so the disease will either peter off or will not cause as much harm as it is causing right now. It is a safe vaccine. It is. I have got my own vaccine, so I really don't see any reason against the vaccination of you and your family, especially if you have a very old parent in the household or somebody that is sick in the household. Vaccination from you will protect the person and also protect the society at large. I hope that answers your question.
I had a question. Hello?
Yes, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. So you talked about, I'm not sure what I'm saying. talked about herd immunity, and I was wondering what some of the other physicians think. You know, many experts say we have to reach a certain level to get herd immunity. Right, I can speak now. So, I mean, Dr. Linus and Luku was mentioning herd immunity. So I wanted to open it, you know, this out to the other doctors, Dr. Lanre and Dr. Onime and Dr. Keith. What level of herd immunity would we need to reach for this vaccine to be effective? Now, consider the fact that studies are showing us right now that about 45% of people do not want to take the vaccine. And what's that going to mean if we don't reach herd immunity?
This is Keith Robinson. So, you know, I think the concept of herd immunity is a strong one in that the idea is when we protect ourselves from future infection, the goal is to ensure that the most vulnerable parts of our societies and countries and loved ones aren't going to be at greater risk of having severe illness. So I think the percentage changes, and I think it changes mostly because of the virus itself is changing. But I think overall, everybody's expected that at least 70 to 80% of people need to be vaccinated or have caught the infection in order to reach a level where the virus starts to burn itself out into causing severe illness. The large concern from a research standpoint, since that's what I do for a living now, is that the time frame for how that happens is the issue. How rapidly we can get to herd immunity is the concern. And I think as the virus continues to change, the goal line for making that a reality also changes. And so I think that's the urgency with which we need to try and vaccinate as many people as we can with whichever vaccine comes available in your area, is that we want to try and stop the goal line from moving too far out into space and into time, because I think the longer the virus has its opportunity to change, then the less and less and less unfortunate at least the benefit of the vaccine will be. And so we need to really ramp up not only the production, but also relieve the hesitancy people have to take the vaccine, simply because, again, our most vulnerable population in the countries that we live in are going to be at greatest risk of having a bad outcome if we can't reach herd immunity as quickly as we can.
That's awesome. So, I mean, as a physician, you are encouraging people to take the vaccine. I mean, is it like a civic duty almost besides protecting yourself?
I would answer that as an all hands on deck scenario, which is, you know, in the best civil societies, we do what we can to help our neighbors. And so if I may be at low risk, but, you know, at greater risk of actually giving the virus or transmitting the virus to other people, the benefit I can give to my colleagues, the benefit I can give to my neighbors is to vaccinate and ensure that I'm not going to be the risk for them to catch the infection and then spread it to other more vulnerable populations of people. And so, I mean, I like the discussion of how this is a civic duty, because I think overall we're in this together. This virus doesn't tease out who it wants, it teases out who's most vulnerable. And so the idea that we can protect each other is a reminder for why this pandemic is such a global effort for all of us to really try and participate in doing the best we can to reach herd immunity.